Hello and welcome. This is Jennifer McGuire. Today I'm really excited to bring you a video about a product so many people have been asking about, and that is the new collection of Hero Art's Ombre ink pads. Now these ink pads, as the name suggests, fades from a lighter to darker color all in one ink pad. These are really unique and I'm really excited about them. So I'm going to actually talk a little bit about the inks first, show you them up close, and then we'll come back and do these card examples that you see here. So this is the Hero Arts Ombre ink pad. There are 5 ink pads out so far. There'll be more coming out. One goes from pool to navy. The next is mint to green, so it fades from one color to the next. Then we have gray to black, which would be fun for a sentiment, just to add some variation. Then we have butter to orange, and finally pink to red. The ink formulation used on these ink pads is the same as the Hero Arts Shadow Ink, which if you've ever watched my videos, you know I'm a big fan of because the results are so strong. And I'll put a link here so you can learn more about this formulation. Now looking at the ink pad, you can kind of see there are 3 stripes of color from light to dark, so that when you ink up your stamp, you get that ombre look. The colors on these ink pads actually coordinate with colors of shadow inks that already exist, which makes it fun to match it up with what you already have. Now here's how you ink up the stamp. You kind of do a little cha-cha. You're kind of going back and forth ever so slightly across the ink pad so that you can help blend the colors. Now when you stamp this, it will be splotchy and uneven at first, but as it absorbs into paper over time, it will smooth and even out like you see on the bottom there. That's very typical of the shadow inks, and that's what makes them special. They smooth out and give you a nice solid image. So here's a closer look at the 5 different color combinations. You can see they fade from light to dark. I'm really pleased with the variation you get, especially when you do that little cha-cha back and forth, which I'll show you again here in a moment. Okay, so let's go ahead and make these cards to kind of show you a closer look at these inks in action. I actually only used 4 of the ink pads. I skipped the gray to black, and I created these very simple cards, but you can see by using the ombre ink, the cards have a little more interest to them. I'm using 3 different stamp sets on these cards, and I wanted to show you that these stamp sets actually come with matching dies for the words. I'm not using them on the cards today, but I think that's really great that they have those, and I wanted you to know about them. For today's video, I'm going to be using this Misty stamping tool. The Misty is basically a really robust stamp positioner that has many great techniques you can use it for. However, you could use a regular acrylic block for today's cards. I just thought it would be fun to use this tool, and I'll link to some other videos that show more about this tool. I'm also using white cardstock that is cut to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. Since I'm only using sentiments on this card, I want to make sure they're nice and straight. So I have printed a grid on a piece of transparency that I've trimmed down to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And I lay this over my paper when I'm picking out the position for my stamps. This way I can make sure that they're nice and straight. Now this transparency that I printed the grid on, all you have to do is go to the My Sweet Petunia website, which is where you can buy the Misty, and they have a free download there, which I'll link to, and you just take it to Kinko's and have them printed on transparency and cut it down, and you can reuse this over and over and over again. So I'm using the grid to make sure these are straight, and it also kind of helps hold the stamps until I close the door on the stamp positioner to transfer the stamps onto that panel. So now it's ready to do inking. Again, you could just use an acrylic block here. Since these are new stamps, I'm going to do what I always do and first ink them off onto some scrap paper. So here I'm just quickly inking up the stamp and stamping it onto scrap paper. I just feel like stamps need a little love before they're ready to perform completely. So I just did that very quickly. Okay, so now we can do our final stamping. So this time I'm going to ink up the stamp really well with the ombre ink. So watch how I do this. This is how you get the best results with the ombre ink. I'm going to ink it up and kind of move back and forth ever so slightly, like a little cha-cha, kind of going back and forth just a little bit, always in that same side-to-side direction. It helps to overlap and blend the colors, and look at that great blending you get from red to medium pink to light pink. Just beautiful and great for a simple card like this. I decided I also wanted to add a little heart onto that, so I'm just going to put that transparency down long enough to just kind of hold the heart as I put it in place, right there above the word hello. Now I'll close the door on the Misty to transfer that stamp over to the other side. And now I'm just going to use the light pink part of the ombre ink pad just to ink that up and then stamp it down. After I did this, I thought it looked a little bit too light, so I'm actually going to ink it up again and stamp it one more time. That's the nice thing about the Misty Stamp Tool, is that I can be sure that it'll stamp in exactly the same place because I'm using this tool. But again, you could use an acrylic block to make these cards by all means. So I want to do this one more time so you can see the inking in action again. I am once again positioning some words, this time happy birthday, on top of the transparent grid that I printed. I'm going to get it positioned just right and then close the door on it to transfer the stamps onto the other side. Now again, I'm going to stamp off very quickly because this is a new stamp. So you saw me ink it up quickly and just kind of stamp it onto some scrap paper. Now I'm going to do the final version of it. So I have my white cardstock in place and I'm going to go ahead and ink up the stamp, again doing that little cha-cha back and forth ever so slightly, just so that we can help blend the colors but not overlap too much. So now I close the door and there we have our beautiful stamped image. Now I noticed I wanted my Y to be a little bit darker. This is one of the advantages again of the Misty stamping tool. I can put it back in, I can re-ink that Y and then close it and it'll stamp exactly on top of the original. Now I did decide, of course, that I wanted to add a little star or something next to this, so I'm doing a star from one of the stamp sets. So I'm just going to transfer that over to the door, ink it up with one of the colors on the ombre ink pad and close it, and there we have our final little happy birthday panel. So I did the other two cards the same, but with the other two ombre ink pads. And remember, just to go back and forth or side to side ever so slightly, just to help blend it. You really don't need to do this much because the inks surprisingly blend very well between the three colors. I was a little worried they wouldn't because there are three distinct lines on the ink pad, but they really do blend together. And I think that is thanks to the formulation of the shadow inks that's used in these. So here you can see the 4 panels that I did. I could have done this just on a white note card and kept it very simple, but I'm going to add some fun to this here in a moment. But you can see all 4 of these ombre ink pads. Again, I didn't do the gray to black. Okay, so let's turn these into some simple kind of fun cards. I did this cut right down the sentiment and put some glitter paper to behind it. I thought that would be fun. I'm first going to cut a little bit off the bottom of each of these panels. I actually ended up cutting a little more than a 1/4 of an inch here. I went back and I cut a little bit more off. Then I'm going to go back and do a cut right through my sentiment. I'm going to be really bold here. This is something my friend Laura Basson taught me to do, is just be bold with kind of where you crop a card or how you cut it. I cut a thin line, I moved it over a little bit, and I cut another thin line. So I actually cut a very thin slice right out of the center of the sentiment. You could just do one cut and then separate the panels, but I think it looks better to cut a little thin strip out because then it just kind of seems continuous and you don't feel like you stretched your stamp there. So here I'll do it again on this one. I'm going to cut a little bit off the bottom. Now I'm going to go and do a cut right through the sentiment, and then I'll keep it in my trimmer and just shift it a little bit more, about 1/8 of an inch. So here's the first cut. I'll shift about 1/8 of an inch over and do another cut. So we're cutting out a very thin slice right through the center of the sentiment. Okay, so now we have all of our pieces cut. I'm going to go and put that glitter piece right down the center and then put them onto a note card. I wanted to show you how I did that. Since this is a large panel that I want to put with some dimension behind it, instead of foam adhesive tape, I'm actually using white craft foam. This is just the stuff you get at a craft store, cut to slightly smaller than our white piece. This will make sure that it goes to the mail without getting crushed. So I have that's going to go on the top of this red note card, and then I'm putting a foam piece behind the other, and that will go towards the bottom of the note card. And this red cardstock is Wild Cherry from My Favorite Things. Okay, so now I've got this ready to go. I'm just going to put some adhesive to adhere these right to the card. Regular adhesive actually works just fine with this foam craft foam that I'm using here. Now at this point, I thought I was just going to let the red shine through between the two pieces. It was an afterthought to actually put that glitter. So I'll show you how I fixed that. I have cut a thin strip of Die Cuts with a View silver glitter paper. I love this stuff because it doesn't rub off. I tried to slide it in behind the two panels. I was taking the lazy way here, and it didn't work so much for me. So I ended up having to take my card apart a little bit. And I will admit, I take my cards apart and move things around all the time. I just don't usually leave it in the videos. But that's the nice thing about using an adhesive like the Tombow Stamp Runner. You can move things around, but then when you stick it down, it'll stay put when you put it in the mail. So now I am going to go ahead and put my card back together, but I have that fun little bit of silver glitter showing through between the two panels. I think doing this where you trim right through that main image is just a fun way to add a little bit of interest to what would otherwise be a very simple card. It wouldn't be a Jennifer card without a little bit of Wink of Stella shimmer, so I put that on the heart, and then I put a little coat of glossy accents over that just to give it a little bit of shine and dimension. So that's all there is to it, and you can see the 4 cards that I created here. So I hope that this video gave you a good look at the new Hero Arts Ombre ink pads. I'll be using them a lot in the future, so stay tuned. And always, if you are interested in these products, these inks or these stamps or any of it, I have them linked below in my YouTube description, or you can go over to my blog at jennifermcguireink.com where I'll have much more information, including a giveaway. I hope this video was helpful to you. If you thought it was, please give it a thumbs up so YouTube knows you want to see more from me, and I hope you'll return again soon. Thanks for watching.